Everyone, Rob and I are excited to have Leah and Pete, two really thoughtful school leaders, to have a conversation today about how AI leadership is actually just good school leadership. What are the things that make for strong culture, systems, and practices for leading any part of school? And we can look at those through the lens of AI practice. So, Pete, if you would just introduce yourself and tell us what's something that you're doing at your school that is a AI case study of a broader, strong practice you have around school leadership.
Right. Yeah. My name is Pete Mathis. I'm the director of middle school at Winchester Thurston in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Originally when we got into this, like most schools, it was like, who's going to do this work, right? And as a leader and not an expert at AI, it took a little convincing, but I got my arm twisted, and I approached this just like any other leadership opportunity, really. That I don't need to be an expert, but what I need to do is assemble a team. So I assembled a task force of folks who were interested in across all the divisions. We're pre-K through 12, so I have people from all over the place that are part of a task force, and we work together to start figuring out what are some different things that teachers are interested in and faculty. What about our kids? What about our families? How do we communicate all this? So really, what ended up happening naturally was we use like Scrum methodology, which is basically put all these sprint teams together, knowing that time is limited. People are going to join these teams based on their interest and the topic, and then they're going to do the work. And when we actually meet, we're talking and getting feedback and iterating things to make sure that we're ready to roll things out. For example, some of the subgroups that we have working are on guardrails for AI. Some are on research about best practices for assessment. Some are on health and wellness, which is one that we added late in the game. We started this work last year, and at the end of the year, one of the recommendations we had was to have an area or a subgroup really focus on the health and wellness aspect of how AI is impacting kids. And then finally, we do all this work together as a task force, but then we also set up an advisory board. So we have people within the organization that we go to maybe once a month, and we just tell them the work that we're doing, and they give us feedback on it from their point of view, and we incorporate that, and we just keep iterating and iterating. Basically, we're a resource, and I like to look at it as like a North Star. We're like a guidance point for faculty here, because we know that things are changing rapidly. We cannot be the experts at everything, every tool that's out there, but certainly we can provide some guidance and some understanding to our faculty and our community, because we want parents to know about it too, and families. So it's all about just doing the work and really being and remaining flexible when we're doing that work.
And what I'm hearing about what you've done is, say, instead of having one monolithic AI task force that works, say, in isolation, you've incorporated Scrum methodology, you've got working groups, the advisory board, all of which are leadership techniques and practices that a school could apply to, of course, AI, but to any other school initiative. And Leah, how about you? What's going on at Mount Vernon that you'd like to share?
We actually took a very similar approach as Pete, as we were looking at AI, incorporating AI, getting feedback from teachers. And then I think the other piece that sometimes with the rapidness of AI, what we've done is we've brought together a group of people, and we are a group of people who did a lot of the deep dive research around AI. So, that's our chief financial officer looking from a financial and a risk perspective. That's our director of technology. That is myself. I am Leah Hannon, and I am at the Mount Vernon School in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm the chief strategy and impact officer. And we also have a systems technology person, and we are able to kind of come together also with our chief innovation officer and sit down and make decisions as they come along. And we're not a group that meets together all the time. We all kind of meet in a very similar way as what Pete was saying when we're having conversations about AI. But when that moment comes for us to make a decision around AI, maybe someone has used AI incorrectly, or we've got a situation that just happened with AI, or there's a new piece of AI that we really want our team to be aware of. We come together, and we've come together just recently because there was a huge AI decision that we needed to make with a company that we were using, and because we had a protocol and because we kind of have a position as a school around AI, we were able to make a decision pretty quickly. So that has been really helpful for us. It did not become a team that meets all the time or consistently, but it is a group of people who are in the room making decisions and really have a foundation to stand on.
And so it sounds like, good school leadership is that a school would have a crisis response or a situation response team that's knows how to make a decision, knows what its guiding star, its values are, and can come together as needed. You have one of those, a situation response group that can make decisions, evaluate the landscape, and take action as needed, but particularly around AI. That's super smart. Rob, what are you curious about?
Yeah, we've been talking to school leaders, and a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed. People are feeling paralyzed. No matter which direction we go, we're going to alienate some part of our community. What advice would you give to a school leader who's feeling really overwhelmed or feeling stuck right now? Pete, how about what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, you start small, right? And so, before this work, the pre-work was to get a policy in place, right? To have a general thing put out there to the public, and that really kickstarts the work. And then I think you build a team around that to kind of what Leah was talking about too, and I was talking about, like get some people who care about this and will make some decisions. But I think it's all about how you frame it to your constituents, to your faculty, to your community. That you know we're not the experts in any of this, but we're digging in, right? And we know that this is going to change, and we will be able to iterate and scale where and when appropriate. So the great thing about the subgroups that we're working on is like some groups are digging in a lot deeper because they have to. They have to do some research. They have to get in the trenches a little bit. Where others, we can put a family packet out of some communication tools and things that they can tap into. So the work evolves as is, but if you try to tackle it all at once, it's going to be impossible. So you either need to start small and scale, or you need to have a kind of set up a team to delineate the work and distribute the work a little bit so that you can have small wins, right? You want the small wins and continually communicating with your community about what is going on and what is happening.
I love the way that mirrors the kind of collaborative exploration that we want our students to be doing.
Yeah.
That's nice modeling there. Leah, how about you?
I think very similar to Pete, the idea of having teams of people to kind of work on things. You've got research, as he mentioned. You also have tools and applications. You also have the ethics of AI. So kind of having those teams working. And then going back to that group that I was mentioning is most often when we're doing something or implementing something new, we are typically trying to pilot it, right? So even with our new tech, we're going to pilot it in a small classroom. We're going to pilot it with a teacher and maybe a few teachers and some students. So we've kind of taken that approach with AI as well, which is to pilot it with a teacher, a classroom, someone who's really interested in it, and really get their feedback. I think sometimes we jump the gun to purchase something and then we're training everyone on it, as opposed to finding a few different tools that do the same job. I think that's where the overwhelm comes from, is a lot of the tools out here can do the same thing. You're not sure which one to pick. So again, doing that exploration on a small scale. And then as Pete says, then you can start scaling it up. And now you've got the buy-in from your teachers, the buy-in from the students, because they understand how it works. So really similar to how we kind of pilot and scale any of our initiatives in school, AI kind of sits in that same bucket.
So I'm hearing as far as good school leadership, you're demonstrating the power of collaborative teams and sub-teams and agile Scrum working groups, using an advisory board for getting some feedback outside of your potential echo chamber, thinking about pulling together a situation response team that maybe has some expertise and context around AI and how you all make school decisions in a particular school, and then thinking about the power of not doing everything at once, distributing the learning, and the power of those pilots. I think we could have this whole video be about almost any other topic, and those would be great bits of advice. Thank you for sharing how you're leading your schools at Mount Vernon and at Winchester, Thurston.